to warm you up.
I'm melting! Melting! Oh, what a world! What a world!
Duh.
Payne is right. Today's episode, I ain't even gonna delay it. This episode is about Bubbles feeling irrelevant because she's never been in the spotlight, nor has she ever been recognized for her individual achievements as a Powerpuff Girl. That's right, I'm dead serious. This episode treats Bubbles as if she's insignificant and has never contributed to anything because her two sisters have done all the work the whole time and gotten all the credit for it, which doesn't make a lick of sense in this show, as a multitude of Bubble-centric episodes disprove this entirely. Was her ability to code in Viral Spiral and save the internet null and void? You're telling me her sisters don't remember how she got a cast and used it as a bomb to take down Packrat? The professor doesn't remember the time she helped him take down the giant moles in Road Trippin'? What about how she helped save the beach in Summer Bummer? Defeating him in Tiara Trouble? Fighting the food monsters in Power Up Puff? Stopping Mojo and Odd Bubbles out? Memory Lane of Payne arguably has the worst premise for an episode in the entire series, hell, the entire franchise. Like, it's one thing for the episode to make Bubbles think she's insignificant, as the original did with Bubble Vicious, but for it to actually go out and show that she is and say that she is fallacious in every sense of the word. This episode is already built on such an erroneous premise from the very start that it's already put itself at a huge disadvantage before even going into it. I guess that means we should go into it now, shouldn't we?
A close one. Yeah, who would have thought a simple trip to the box factory would turn into a huge monster fight against the evil Boxulon?
I suppose it should also be said that the first time I heard of this title, I genuinely thought this was a Painbow flashback episode, so at the very least I can say I was relieved to find out that wasn't the case. The Powerpuff Girls have recently gotten back from a battle against the evil Boxulon at the box factory, which we didn't get to see, so we just have to take their word for it. And they stumble upon the professor, who managed to gather up some old mementos of theirs.
Well, I've started collecting some mementos from your adventures after the accident with the amnesia ray.
What amnesia ray?
Exactly.
I'll give this delivery credit. It pretty much plays on the idea that there was an amnesia ray, but nobody, not even the audience, remembers it because it would have been wiped from everybody's memories. Except the professors, I guess. I give it a thumbs up, although if someone were to say it's the reasoning why nobody remembers Bubbles being useful, I'd retort that it's an incredibly lazy excuse because the professor at least would remember these events, and the newspapers should still reflect this because those wouldn't have been changed by an amnesia ray. Blossom and Buttercup go through belongings and find things, such as a callback to the original series.
Huh? Here's that time I beat Abracadabra. Man, I look so different back then.
Leave it to me to tell you that although this screenshot does seem to take on the appearance of the original, it's not screen capped straight out of the episode it's based on, as you can clearly see by the lack of background and various positioning of their features. Seems the quality was touched up a bit and it looks nice, just makes me wish for what could have been. There's also Swamptopus's Tentacle, another villain the girls supposedly fought sometime, but we've never seen or heard of it before. Bubbles then decides to take a look. It's in a book reading Rainbow and comes up empty. The only thing in there she seems to come across are some dust bunnies, so the professor advises they look at the newspaper headlines instead.
Blossom and Buttercup foil Mojo. Other one also there. Dynamic duo saves the day, despite weird pigtailed fan. Pigtail ruins photo?
What, like, huh? Literally 3 episodes ago, we had Bubbles in the newspaper, putting Pugface Polly in jail. Even if the production codes were out of order for Season 2, this still doesn't make any sense because all of the other episodes I named from Season 1. Like, it's just ridiculous how poorly this episode tries to pretend Bubbles never did anything prominent. As I made clear in Buttercup vs. Math, she's more significant than Blossom. Memory Lane of Payne could have at least tried to give a valid reason towards Bubbles' feelings of insignificance instead of outright disregarding everything else the series has established just so it could shit all over her.
Have I ever done anything to help?
Well, you helped ruin that photo.
You know, I don't even have anything against mean-spirited episodes when it's justified. I don't rag on a situation where a character gets punished if there's a completely understandable and deserved reason for it. But damn, there's no reason for this here. Bubbles has done nothing wrong. Why is she being attacked like this so much? And just wait, it gets worse. This is where the episode becomes a clip show of sorts, as Blossom begins to recollect how helpful she was during their encounter with the Salvador Dalis. You know, like dolls of the famous painter. It's a good pun, I guess. At the very least, it's a clip show of new content and not just reusing previous episodes, which I'm totally fine with. I tend to prefer when shorter new stories are embedded inside larger narratives like this, and I'm totally okay with these kinds of episodes when they're not just repeating what we've already seen. Though, for all I know, this could just contain two ideas that wouldn't span an entire 11 minutes, so they were cut down instead, but hey, it's better than retreading old ground, like I said. The first of these encounters takes place inside this toy store, where a villain known as the Rubber Bandit is caught in the act of stealing precious dolls that he plans to sell on the black market. The Rubber Bandit, as a villain, is pretty cool. He's got a play on words going for him, and his agility matches up quite nicely. He even manages to trap the girls by sticking a rubber bomb inside one of the dolls and tossing it to Bubbles. Don't ask me how the girls fall for this one, but we gotta make Bubbles stupid for the sake of the story, I guess. They end up encased in this rubber trap so that they can't get out without the help of Salvador Dali.
What is time but an illusory construct of human perception?
Yeah, I mean, I do appreciate this reference to the artist's work, but this is seriously nothing more than a cut and dry Deus Ex Machina used to write the characters out of the situation rather than going for the, well, obvious solution. Laser eyes. Blossom even uses them later on, so I don't know why it couldn't have been done here.
If I understand physics, and I do,
Oh, I thought that was Buttercup's role now. I'm sorry, all three of the girls are the smart one now, so it's hard to tell who's who. You know, I bet this giant lobster phone statue is worth thousands more than these dolls the Rubber Bandit stole. I don't think launching it via a giant rubber band is a smart idea, but well, I guess they're doing it anyways. But it successfully stops the bandit dead in his tracks, so that's good at least.
hey there, buddy. Having a nice trip, like the view, having a good time.
You know, I actually thought that was enjoyable. Too bad it's not enough to stop the Rubber Bandit though, since he's made of rubber and all, so she decides to melt him with her laser eyes instead. I don't get why she's smart enough to use this now, yet the girls couldn't to get out of the rubber band trap and had to rely on a Deus Ex Machina instead. I mean, the evil is defeated all the same, but it feels like a major oversight, kinda like how she retorts to this comment right here.
You can't hurt me, Blossom. I'm rubber and you are glue.
Actually, I'm Laser Eyes.
I'm gonna be blunt, that had no wit whatsoever, but she does melt him into a giant uncomfortable dodgeball and tosses him away in the distance, saving the day single-handedly without the help of Buttercup or Bubbles whatsoever. Kind of misses the point of Blossom telling the story in the first place, but we really have to hammer it home that Bubbles is insignificant, guys. What I personally find to be more insignificant, however, is the way Blossom concludes her story.
Salvador Dali never loses. Rhinoceros.
I don't know. And so Buttercup shrugs it off, saying she doesn't blame Blossom, considering she gets the two of them confused all the time, as does the professor, and quite frankly, I think a lot of people do, considering there's nothing that distinguishes Blossom as a separate character anymore, and no, I'm not gonna let that go. It's Buttercup's turn to tell a story, this time featuring a sentient ice cream dude named Popsicles, who's turning everyone and everything into various ice cream desserts. The girls rapidly spring into action as to put a stop to his frozen fury as soon as possible, so Bubbles attempts to stop him with a rubber hose but completely loses control of it in the process, causing both her and Blossom to get turned into popsicles, leaving it up to Buttercup to save the day. Yay! What else is new? This was a major missed opportunity to capitalize on those horrifying Bubbles ice cream bars that they sell in various ice cream trucks, and I'm severely disappointed that this show did not acknowledge them. Severely. I mean, I guess the same thing kinda happens when Bubbles gets absolutely fucked up by Buttercup using her as a sword. Can she feel that? I wasn't kidding when I said this episode only exists to shit all over Bubbles. Buttercup ends up defeating him by turning into a flamethrower and melting him all the way down to his popsicle stick skeleton, extra metal style, and she gets recognized for saving the day while Bubbles gets forgotten about once again. Go figure. As any normal person would, Bubbles gets fed up with this bullshit and heads up to her room for the night, considering she's gotten no respect from her family for the past however long they've been talking.
Ah, man. Blossom, you screwed up.
The next morning, she wakes up and roasts her pig alarm clock into bacon out of frustration, which I found was kind of funny, while her sisters try to get her out of bed and go outside. Bubbles isn't really having it, as she remarks that she'll screw up folding someone's hat, even though hats don't need folded, so she once again proves that she's doing something wrong. But she floats outside regardless and sees all these people greeting her as they thank her for the wonderful thing she's done for them, all of which we've never actually seen her do, so we just have to take the episode's word for it instead. Oh yeah, and if that wasn't enough, the mayor references that Miss Bellum is gone again because the show really wants to gloat that it was the right decision to remove her even though it wasn't.
When I was sad after Miss Bellum left, you gave me this hanky to blow my nose.
Man, there's been a lot of telling and not showing this episode, hasn't there? Like, we just have to take these characters' word for it, despite never seeing Bubbles prove that any of these things happened.
You made us feel like winners, even though we lost the championship game to Salvador Dali.
Salvador Dali never loses. Rhinoceros.
Seriously, what? Look, I know the guy liked rhinos, but why is he here, and what does this have to do with anything going on right now? Oh god, and are you ready for one of the absolute worst thrown-in lessons in the entire series thus far?
What we're trying to say is that sometimes the greatest heroes are the everyday heroes.
And you're our hero.
Excuse me? Where on earth in any of this episode was Bubbles being an everyday hero? When was anybody being an everyday hero? All we did was sit and listen to Blossom and Buttercup tell stories about their personal successes while fighting supervillains. Not only did Bubbles do nothing heroic whatsoever, resulting in us having to be told she was a hero by these other citizens, she is a superhero. What are you trying to prove? Get out of here with this everyday hero BS. There's nothing everyday about an elementary schooler flying around fighting monsters. Last I checked, an everyday person can't shoot lasers from their eyes, talk to animals, or fly. This is almost as bad as Once Upon a Townsville's ass-pull of a moral. Almost. At least this episode doesn't make suicide look like a joke.
Without you, we'd just be the dynamic duo, which sounds awesome. Ow!
Nowhere in Memory Lane of Pain do we even see an everyday hero that's unappreciated in the background, so that's out of the question too. This is a pitiful attempt at trying to spell out a lesson that comes across as though you think the audience is too stupid to get it. It certainly doesn't help that this supposed moral has absolutely nothing to do with what we just watched. It's blatantly incorrect. What in this episode showed an everyday hero doing good things? What about this episode had Bubbles being the rest of her family's hero? And that's another thing. They're gonna sit here and say, Bubbles, you're our hero, when they literally just spent the last 10 minutes shit-talking her directly to her face and acting as if nothing's wrong. That's straight up manipulation. In its purest form. What we're trying to say is that sometimes the greatest heroes are the everyday heroes. Well, goddamn, we must be speaking different languages because there wasn't anything remotely close to that presented in those flashbacks. I thought we learned this with Once Upon a Townsville. I thought we learned this with Donnie. As if outright stating this lesson wasn't enough, apparently it also felt necessary for the barbershop quartet to outright state lesson to further cement it in our brains. I think I made it crystal clear how much I detest this episode at this point, so there's no further need to repeat myself. Maybe you watching got more out of Memory Lane of Pain than I did, and more power to you, but I'm afraid I can't say the same.
Just